Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new, hello. Welcome to the family. Just a quick one. Thanks for everyone who wished me well. I was really sick last week. I got a super nasty infection. You don't want to see any photos of it. And my face still looks just a slightly bit messed up, but I just could not appear on camera last week, and I honestly felt too awful for it as well. Ended up in hospital for a couple of days on IV antibiotics, which was super fun. But I'm very glad to be back bringing you a live session. And I hope to be doing more lives. And just to let you know, for my Substack members, paid members, there will be a bonus section at the end of this live stream just for you guys. And I will cut the stream just to there. And for today, I have a very special guest for you. I'm joined by Mr. Nathan King, ex-contestant of Big Brother from last year. Welcome, Nathan.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thanks so much for joining me on the channel. So everyone,
Have me.
please post your comments in the chat. Let me know if you can see and hear us. And if you have any questions for Nathan, put them in there. We might try and get to them. So Nathan, you've been making some waves, some controversy online with some of the things you've been saying about politics that, the woke brigade might consider extreme, but so some others might consider common sense. So I'd be curious to know, tell me a bit about yourself, your experience on Big Brother, especially when it comes to tackling some of these political issues. I wasn't really tuned into it last year, to be honest, but obviously there's been a lot of clips circulating. Viewers of my channel may be familiar with some of the stuff I covered on Emily getting booted out. She's a Tory. On Zelah, the trans contestant, and George also saying numerous controversial things and then getting booted off the show. So first, let's start with you and your experience.
Yeah, so I applied. I was on last year's series. I just applied on a whim. I was at that point in my life where I was doing different jobs that I reasonably enjoyed. But one of my friends sent me the application for Big Brother, and I thought, you know what have I got to lose? And I think the thing is, a lot of people will go on it with a view to moving on to certain careers, whether it be in the media, whatever it is they're looking to do. I didn't. I went in with no expectations, no no idea of what I wanted from it other than a bit of an experience. But it turned into the thing is with Big Brother, I loved it. I spent 6 weeks in there. I don't know quite how I managed it, but I got to the final. Clearly, people didn't know me that well when they were voting to keep me in for that long, but it was great. And then I came out of the show and you see the furor on social media. I didn't use social media. I think that's an important caveat for me that I should always say. 12 months ago, I didn't use social media at all. I had Instagram that I posted on maybe once every year, just to let my friends know that I was still alive and well. But apart from that, I didn't use it. So I've had a bit of a baptism of fire with it. And as you say, had a few controversies. I think the thing
Mhm.
is, I've noticed on social media, and maybe more so in the kind of Love Island type Big Brother people that come out from there, everyone's so used to seeing people who are PR trained and don't really say what they're thinking and just say what will get them a brand deal. And I don't do that. I just say whatever I'm thinking. And yes, sometimes it does um, stoke a bit of controversy, but I don't think I say anything too bad. I think I'm pretty mainstream, really.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what my viewers make of it. Well,
Exactly.
congratulations on, you said you made it to the final, right?
I did. I don't know how.
So there are so many moments popping up from this season. Did anything happen while you were in the house of, controversial things you said and you getting attacked for it?
Yeah, I think luckily for me, they always put in a kind of an enemy you're gonna have. They know who you'll fall out with in the house. And for me, it was an Extinction Rebellion member. She glues herself to roads, whatever. Days was her
God.
name, and she was insufferable. And that's the best way of putting it. As a person, she was lovely, lovely person. I wouldn't mind going for a pint with her probably as long as we steer away from politics. But when she spoke politics, it was so simple to debate because she spoke in such a ridiculous way. I remember one phrase specifically she said was, I think Britain was the first country to be colonised and it was colonised by itself. Now, to any normal person, that just doesn't make sense. And I don't even know what she was trying to achieve by saying that. So I think in my kind of straight shooting way, It was quite easy for me to counteract that, and I came across quite well. This year, I've noticed the housemates, they're a lot, they are far more woke than last year. Like, you can't say anything without someone saying, "Oh, that's rather inappropriate. You can't say that." Well, you can say it. You just might not like it. So, yeah, last year I didn't get into as much controversy as might have thought I might have done.
Yeah. Well, considering some of the stuff I've seen you say online, I'm surprised about that. But
Mhm.
sometimes I think that guys get away with a little bit more, although that doesn't really stand up to scrutiny when it comes to George. And,
Yeah,
obviously with this year, they kind of have hit all the token minorities. So we had a trans man
yep,
contestant, so a female. We have there was a Muslim woman. I think I didn't even
yep,
know this till I had a look on Twitter today, who's since been evicted. There
that's
was
right.
a guy talking about how he married his cousin.
Yes.
And what else did we have? General kind of race type
Yes. Yeah.
woke people, and then
Yeah.
there's also a gay contestant as well.
Yeah. There's a they there. Well, they go by. This is the ridiculous one for me. This is one of the most ridiculous. They say the answer to any pronouns as he, she, they. What do you mean? Like it's they're a man. They're a man. But everyone and I he see it online and when Big Brother are talking about them, it's always they themselves. No, no, no. It's a he. It's definitely a he. But another box
And are,
tick.
are they one of the newer contestants?
Yeah, this is from this series. Yeah, that's from. I think
But
what's her
they
name getting
entered the
sacked.
house recently, did they?
No, no, they entered on night one. Night
Oh,
one,
which
he
one is
entered.
that? Which person's that?
Very, um, very. I don't know what word to use. Very
The
out
camp
there.
guy.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Oh, I
that's
didn't
probably
realize he was a they them.
yes.
Should have known.
Should have.
Um, so tell me about some of the stuff that have happened this season. I know I said that I had covered some of it, but
Yeah.
what are your key highlights and some takeaways you've had from the show?
Yeah, I think for me the standout is obviously firstly I mentioned to Emily Hewitt, and I love Emily, and I think she's done so well. She's not getting shown that much by the editing team. I don't know why they're not the production team aren't showing her, but I think probably that's because the main character, I suppose, this series is Caroline. She has become the villain to the woke, very much so. And the thing is, it must. I don't know what they want from it because when you read online and read on X, do they just want a group of people on Big Brother now that just all sit and sing Kumbaya and don't disagree? Like you can't have that. That's not what Big Brother's about. It's about putting different people in there. But in their eyes, oh no, we can't have anyone right leaning or that actually says what they're thinking because that might be offensive. But Caroline owns it. And I think she's fantastic. She's really the one thing she didn't own, and I understand why is I think you said you might have covered it with the controversy she had with Zelah, the trans contestant. So Caroline, quite within her right, I think she'd had a few wines, so she didn't word it perfectly, but she's respected biological reality with Zelah, and then Big Brother gave her a warning, and she took a step back and apologised. Now I think in hindsight she shouldn't have apologised, and I think she'll probably be kicking herself when she comes out that she did. But I can completely sympathise with her having been in that environment. You're surrounded by cameras. They've got you in a diary room on your own, just speaking to a camera, and they are scolding you and giving you a warning. So that is quite pressurised, and in hindsight's easy for me to say that she should have said, "Well, I'm not accepting that warning. I've done nothing wrong." But I totally get it. I totally get why
Yeah.
she might have done that.
Mm. Yeah, that was an interesting one, right? Because she said in a previous conversation that she was friends with Nigel Farage, right? So it sounds
Yes.
like she's sympathetic to Reform
Yeah.
UK, the right-wing populist party leading in the polls in the UK.
Mhm.
And but then the trans thing, I think from my memory, tell me if I've got it wrong, but she was asking people if you were on a desert island, or she was
Mhm.
asking one of the female contestants if you were on a desert island and you had to procreate with one contestant, who
Yeah.
would it be? Because she was trying to kind of out her for liking someone, right? But then
Yeah.
this woman said Zelah, who's obviously a female,
Yeah.
and then she said, but she's a girl.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part actually was when she started backtracking on it and she said, "No, you're a man, big man." And then it was just digging a hole. All the
Yeah.
housemates were like had their faces covered and everything. But and she also asked Zelah, if you had if you had a cock, what would you do with it? And the
Yes.
housemates were appalled at this. But I think what I found quite interesting was she very much comes across to me like just a normal, average English person who,
Yeah.
maybe is sort of aware that things have gotten out of hand, some things aren't right. She's sympathetic to reform, but she's
Mhm.
not someone who's like super politically engaged, because if she was, she might be more familiar with the trans debate. Whereas for her, it kind of seemed like she was a bit a fish out of water with it, and she wasn't expecting
Yeah.
those challenges, right?
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that is also the problem with reality TV, is because, as I said earlier, it's become so sanitized and everyone's so PR trained that when someone goes on like that, naturally I gravitate towards someone like Caroline because, as you say, just a normal average person that goes on TV. But people aren't used to seeing that, and that's why you can come up against a bit of resistance. I think, and I think that's probably why she is coming up against a bit of resistance. Um, but she is. I just find her. I find her amusing, and I think the thing is that I. I think you're right. I think you touched on something earlier, and I've been thinking about it since you said it about um, maybe a woman getting harsher treatment than a man. And I think in some cases you're absolutely right, because I think I'm trying to put myself in that position. And is it the fact I'm Scottish? Is it the fact that we kind of word things in a maybe a slightly more humorous way? I don't know what it is, or is it down to that it's a man seems to be able to get away with saying things easier than a woman? And I think that's a really interesting point you touched on.
Mm. Yeah, I think sometimes people feel they can exploit women's empathy more and
Mhm.
kind of get that emotional response from them more often. I
Yeah.
think, and I think especially gay men can get away with quite a lot in how they deliver things with sort of a sass.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean the session with her in the diary room was like watching a torture session, and they were bringing her
Yeah.
through the things she said, and she just couldn't bear it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that have happened since? You said that she's sort of the villain. Is she the villain for the viewers? Do the
Oh
woke
yeah.
viewers hate her?
Yeah, the viewers absolutely despise her. She is what she is doing, and what they don't like. She's openly playing the game. She's saying, "Yeah, there's 100 grand to be won here. Yeah, I want to win it." And she's doing things which are, I suppose, for the cameras. She's just hamming it up a bit, and she's winding people up. She's saying things to invoke a reaction. And then there's one person in particular, Richard, who's a 60-plus-year-old man, like butter wouldn't melt type. And for some reason, she's just developed this irrational dislike of him. I have no idea why. I find it amusing, but everyone sympathises with Richard on that one, and everyone has been very much Team Richard. And Caroline, they've been saying she's a bully. I don't think she's bullying him. I think she's just saying it as it is. She said how boring he is, how much she doesn't like him, and good, because the rest of them in there, without her in this series, it would be completely boring. It wouldn't be worth watching, because, as I said, they'd all just agree, they'd all nod, and they would all say how inappropriate every word that came out of everyone's mouth was. But she is just shooting from the hip. I think is the best phrase that I use. Just straight out there, and I think it's great.
And has she landed herself in any more kind of anti woke kind of narratives accidentally, or is it uh, it's more just been her general behavior?
Yeah, it's just more a general behaviour. She's not said anything too, but well, I don't think it's bad. She's just been winding people up and trying to pit people against one another. And she's just playing the game. She is, and they just can't stand her for it, because she's so open and so unapologetic about it. That, yeah, I want to win 100 grand. Who wouldn't?
Mm-hmm. And why do you think she's still in it then, if she's hated so much? Do some of the housemates like her?
Well, the interesting thing is why they hate her even more. She managed to. Big Brother have done some sort of format change this year where you can gain currency and you can buy certain prizes, whether it's a bar of chocolate, whatever. Caroline managed to buy herself 2 weeks immunity, so the public couldn't get
Mm,
to her, which added to the. So I think that's added to the target on her back. Also, I thought it was hilarious, because they want her out, but they just can't get a go at her. Which is that's the thing, and they are finding it very unfair from what I'm seeing on X. But it's not. That's the game. If you get a chance to be up for the public vote, you may go, you may not. But the house might not nominate you. You might gain immunity. That's just how it goes.
mm. And I can see that Zelah, the trans man, has been evicted, which I was really surprised by, because I would have thought, she was definitely in for the win, right?
I
Because
thought
people
so.
love their minorities. So Tell me a bit about that.
Interestingly, Zelah was the bookie's favourite to win, and I thought Zelah would win the minute she walked in there. Um, what happened was it was just for Zelah. A few things happened actually. Zelah was coming across. So at first the box tick was there, and everyone liked Zelah. Well, not everyone, but most people. And now, since then, Zelah had been flirting with several people in the house, despite having a partner on the outside, a woman on the outside. So it's a lesbian relationship, whatever she wants to call it. And the public didn't really like that, firstly, and then secondly, it was just a bit of bad luck. There was three people up for eviction. It was a double eviction, so two were going. One of the people that was up for eviction that week was Richard, and everyone rallied behind Richard to spite Caroline. So it was just pure bad luck from Zelah's point of view that they were up in that double eviction with Richard. I did find it rather amusing, the meltdown they were having, choosing between, because obviously Zelah represents everything that the woke want to push forward, but they had no choice because their spite for Caroline won in the end, I think was the best way of putting
Mm.
that.
And let's talk a bit about George. So he's the ginger-haired English chap who also to me seems like, you know, just kind of a normal person. You don't really get to hear these people's views very often, but he
Yeah.
seems to just be knocking them out of the park with controversy after controversy. So, from my memory, some of the things he said, which obviously they didn't air most of it, but one was a comment about Hitler, which I think he said he made on the first night, right? And
Yeah.
he was basically trying to describe how someone like Hitler actually believed that he was doing something good, right? Which is
Yeah.
actually, if you ask historians, they would agree with this because, you know, if you are someone who's just plain evil and you just enjoy torturing people, you're probably not the kind of leader that's going to rally a whole movement, right? You have to actually believe you're doing something good. So that was a strike. He also got a strike for imitating the gay they them person, which then he
Yes.
decided to get super upset over. And that was interesting to me because I think he said on an interview subsequently after leaving the house that, you know, the gay person, I don't remember his name, but, you know, it almost didn't really occur to him to get upset about it until people started asking him, oh, are you okay? Which
That's what happens.
is
Yeah.
totally this like victimhood mentality thing. But then what hit the nail in the coffin um, was, it's gone from my mind now. Do you remember
There
why he
was I
was
think there was an
actually,
anti-Semitic comment in the and amongst that. I'm not sure if that was his
oh,
final one, but I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
may have been the one, the kind of global conspiracy theory type stuff, as
Yeah,
what
he
I
was
think
saying
it
we need
was.
to, he was saying like he doesn't believe this, but seeing as people are talking about it all the time, we should talk about it and, you
Yeah.
know, learn that it's not true or whatever, which I also can't really disagree with. And I think he also talks about his recessive ginger genes
Oh yes.
and that
Yeah.
can you explain kind of what he said there?
Yeah, I think he said that whether it's his blue eyes and ginger hair, I think it was, one of the rarest in the world, and he wants to keep that moving forward. So he wouldn't have a. I think he did say that he wouldn't have a partner who was black. I think he said something along those lines, and he would go for someone that looked like him exactly.
Hmm.
Which yeah,
What do you make of
interesting.
that?
Um, on the ginger thing, my grandpa was ginger, and I'm very glad that I wasn't. So, firstly, I shall say that. But I think I understand, and overall with George, I understand where he's coming from with his points. He just has a curious mind. I think he was just a bit of a victim of trying to do a bit too much too quickly, and also his wording wasn't perfect. Now, neither's mine. I'm very much in the camp of I am not the most articulate of people. There are a lot of people out there who are far more articulate than myself. But I think George, he just worded things so poorly at times that I think he left himself open to that kind of criticism. And I think the thing is, you have to do, and I will say this for a bit of balance, and I'm not defending ITV or Big Brother in the slightest, but for a bit of balance, you have to do an awful lot to get kicked out. You really do. I remember last year there was, I'm not naming, but there was someone in the house who got a lot of warnings. A lot of, they tell you before you go in, you can get 3 or something, and then it escalates, whatever. But they can make exceptions as long as it's nothing too bad. And there was someone in there who got a ton of warnings, and for a lot of things that they had said, and they didn't get kicked out. So it does make my mind wonder a bit, and I think, right, what did you say, George, and how did you say it? I'm not excusing it, because I don't think he should have been deplatformed. I don't think he should be kicked out. I think they should have just aired what he said and let us make up our minds. It would have been the best thing. But yeah, I would be curious to watch the footage.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't get to see it. I mean, I remember back in the day, Big Brother they used to have every night
Yeah,
an hour-long show, but then you could also just watch it live 24/7.
yeah,
I assume they
that's right.
don't do that anymore.
They don't. They do a live stream up until 2 in the morning, but I think the frustration of why people don't watch is they always put bird noises over bits they don't want people to hear. So the problem, I know it's just ridiculous. The problem is now that they just push a certain narrative, I don't know, is it consumer based, whatever it is. They push a narrative. Back in the day, it was just about watching real people, watching. There was no narrative to follow. It was just people interacting every day, and you were watching them. Now they want a storyline. So if something doesn't fit the storyline, then they'll probably blur it out with the noises, so we don't hear it. So it's become
Yeah,
so convoluted, and it's a shame because it is an iconic show. It really like probably the original social experiment, reality TV. And the thing that they should get back to as well, I thought you were going to say, I remember back in the day of Big Brother, they put a little warning before it started that throughout this program there will be offensive language, strong language, whatever else, sexual scenes, and then you were like, right, okay, we've now got the choice as the viewer. Do you know what? I don't fancy that. I'll switch on something else. But now they don't do that. Why not just do that? Just give us a bit of a warning that, listen, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and then make your own mind up. I think it baffles me, that really.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I also thought maybe I'm remembering it wrong because I watched it when I was a child, but the
Mm.
controversy in the past used to be a lot more, sexual stuff, like people
Yeah.
being really nasty to each other, rather than all these politics coming through.
Yeah, it's curious. They are definitely, without a doubt, pushing a political agenda on Big Brother now. They very much, it has become a political show, and people aren't happy. Some people aren't happy about that, but they want you to talk about politics quite clearly. When you look at the makeup of the house, when I look at the makeup of my house, when I was in last year, they want you to talk politics, and they, for some reason, and they want to push certain agendas. And I find that really, really curious, because I don't know why. I don't know why they're doing that instead of just making it a house full of normal people just
It's a,
having conversations.
I suppose, it's not exclusive to Big Brother. We see this in Disney movies.
Yeah,
It seems like every TV
yeah,
show or even the BBC, a lot of their, dramas have a left-wing tilt, to say the
yeah.
least.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess one counter argument could be, I mean, this year they have had a variety of contestants, so they could just pick all kind of woke contestants and have you believe this is what everyone thinks, this is your average Brit. But they have added some others into the mix there. I mean, I wonder with Emily, she got evicted the first night, and she's known for being a Tory.
Yeah.
Um, maybe they wanted more out of her, which is one of the reasons why she ended up coming back. But do you think that those people are kind of in there as pawns, or is there perhaps a want for them to add some balance and show people of different viewpoints?
I find it really curious because there's always one. It's only one, and I predicted it before because it was easy to predict. Last year I was the token Tory. That's what I was. That's what we get, and it was the same this year. Emily was the token Tory. You get the token older person, which this year was Caroline. Um, so I don't know. I feel like they brought her back, and I think that was fair. But and that first night especially, it certainly looked like they just brought her on just to make a point that no, this is not what the country thinks. We don't like right leaning
Mm.
people. Actually, we just boot them out the first opportunity we get. Um, so yeah, I think I think we are used, and I say we, me, Emily, George, I'd put us in similar categories. We are used to stoke a bit of controversy when we're in there. They know what we'll do. They know how people will react to us, whether it's the viewers or the other people in the house. So yeah, they've got to. Otherwise, I think as much as they like to push their agenda, they must realise it would be
Mm.
dreadfully boring if it went for some balance, some right-wing balance. But anyway, yeah.
Well, watch this space. Hopefully, there'll be some more juicy clips to react to. Well, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the stream so far. If you are, please like the video. Don't forget, add a comment in the stream. And coming up, we're going to be looking at a crazy trans controversy from Los Angeles. The thing that never happens has happened again in a women's locker room. And we're also going to be looking at some of the crazy things being said in mosques in the UK. So please stay tuned for that. And if you miss it, they'll be uploaded as separate videos on my channel. So back to you, Nathan. Let's just talk briefly a little bit about, you and your politics. So you're Scottish, born and bred. When I hear the accent now, I think of the Falkirk woman saying, "Someone who was born and bred here." You know
Yes,
that
that's
woman
right.
who
Councillor,
got
yeah, she
reported to
messaged
the
me the other
police.
week. She messaged me the other week actually because I put out a video supporting her because she said nothing wrong, and that was such an interesting story in itself. But I think,
Could you just recap what I don't have the clip to play today because it only
yeah,
just occurs to me, but could you just recap for my audience what that was? Because
of
honestly,
course. So
out of everything this year, that is one of the most crazy free speech issues I've seen.
I've never seen anything like it. So it was a few months ago, or whatever it was now. She's a councillor for reform up in the Falkirk area. She was doing an interview with the BBC, and they were talking about illegal migrants, and they were talking about the hotels, whatever, along those lines. And all she said was, the councillor, and I wish I could remember her name, she said that she was born and bred here. And that would have been fine if she'd have just carried on. But for some reason, she decided to scold herself for saying it. I say, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Oh, I shouldn't have said. Oh no, I wish I hadn't said that now." And then obviously the clip just blew up. It went viral. And then she was investigated by the police on this, and she was invested by the Standards Committee, the Standards Authority. Everybody investigated for this. Born and bred here. Now, I don't know if that's just a Scottish phrase or if everyone used it, but that is something I would say personally. Like if someone was talking about, I don't know in what context, but I would say something like that. I was born and bred. Yeah, I was born and bred in Scotland, and I just to get investigate, and I know that it was dropped by the police, but to even get to that point shows where we're at as a country. Really
Mm. Yeah, I think
incredible.
the reporter as well, her reaction was insane because she said, "That's very unfortunate for you to have said
Yeah,
that. Can you
yeah.
not see now how people don't feel welcome here?" I mean, what are your thoughts on there's this whole debate lately on ethnicity, nationality. It seems to be the case that for anyone British, be that Irish, English, Welsh, Scottish, your ethnicity doesn't exist. There's no such thing as your heritage and the fact
Yeah.
that you may have, ancestors going back centuries. But then an immigrant is able to be very proud about their heritage and their ethnicity and advocate for policies and, treatment and initiatives specifically based on their race. So I really feel like that was sort of coming out in this conversation, even though it wasn't referred to specifically, because she was trying to suggest, well, no, we can be a welcoming country, but
Mhm.
there are also people here of which it is their homeland. So,
Yeah.
as a Scot yourself, I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's a really fair comment, and I think it shouldn't be controversial to say that we should put British, Scottish, Welsh, Irish, whatever you want, first. We should put those people first, and as you say, every other country in the world would do such a thing without qualms. But for some reason here, we've decided that, oh no, we're a bit selfish if we do that. We'll put everybody else first. Let's worry about ourselves. Let's sort ourselves out. And then it comes also, as you say, but it comes to the flags as well. I'm proud of I'm proud of the Union Jack. I'm proud of the Saltire. But if you're to fly it at the moment, then you're called a whole bunch of names for no apparent reason. But for weeks on, for months, years, months on end, there were foreign flags in London every Saturday, in Glasgow every Saturday. Quite proudly, they'd wander through Buchanan Street in Glasgow with the Palestinian flags or whatever else. But then the minute someone puts up the Union flag, it's controversial. I don't know how we've got to this point. I think the good thing is, I will say, there's enough people that just ignore it and just ignore the names. I think I've been called so many names, racist, whatever. I don't care anymore. I don't care. That I am proud of being Scottish. I'm proud of being British, and I think we should put said people first. Simple as that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it didn't seem to be a controversial issue in the past, and
Yeah.
even just kind of moderate policies like reform saying, we're not going to be paying welfare benefits to foreign nationals, and then you have all of these people clutching their pearls saying this is racist. So to me, it just seems so crazy how far this has spiraled.
Mhm.
What would you say? I know that we can't touch on everything, but what would you say for you as a young Scottish voter? What are some of the key issues you're most concerned about and that you'd like to see change?
Yeah, that's nationally in Scotland. The big thing we've got at the moment is independence. That's coming. There's murmurs coming again, and they're becoming increasingly louder. We do not want. We, as a majority in Scotland, do not want independence from the UK. They are, unfortunately, up in Holyrood. We've got the SNP and Greens, a bit of a coalition going on there. It is a coalition from hell, and they put every other country first apart from Scotland, and they claim to be nationalists. They claim to be proud nationalists who care about Scotland. They want to take us away from Westminster's awful control and then join the EU and put us in the hand of Brussels. They are crazy. And that's the number one thing. And I think the thing is, in Scotland, we do have a very unique political landscape that it's anyone but for a unionist, it's just anyone but the SNP. Which unfortunately the vote's getting divided. It will be next year between now Labour, Conservatives, Reform, which might hand the SNP what they want. But that's the first thing for me as a Scot. Secondly, immigration's the one on everyone. Everyone's talking about immigration, and it's it's so disheartening when you try to have normal, rational conversations on it, and they just call you certain names, racist, whatever, Islamophobe. It just depletes the conversation. We should be able to have a grown-up adult conversation on these issues without resorting to being called a fascist. It's madness.
Yeah, 100%. I think the nationalist thing is so funny because I'm Irish, and also the Irish Republicans
Oh yeah.
who vote for Sinn Féin, you would think that um, they would be anti-mass migration. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the SNPs, the Greens, and then in the case of Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
they are nationists when it comes to hatred of England and the UK,
Yes, that's right.
but then they are pro mass migration in every other sense. So it really just comes down to this absolute hatred of the West. They're happy to say, oh well, we don't want to be part of the UK, but let's welcome as many Palestinians. And I'm not speaking for the average voter. I'm talking more about the kind of elite consensus of the party. But then, they're happy to say, let's drastically change our demographics, in a very fast paced, maybe completely irreversible. These things are
Yeah.
extreme, and you need to be cautious with them, right? I mean,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
I think Scotland has had slightly less migration than England, but I mean, how would you feel if some of your towns like ended up becoming majority Muslim, for example? Maybe it's already happened somewhere.
Yeah, you should see Glasgow. You should see we have Scotland as a whole has had it far less of an impact than England may have had so far, but not Glasgow. Glasgow has been hit really hard. The council's at breaking point. They've run out of money, and there was so many illegal migrants dumped in hotels in the city. People are now scared to walk through the centre, like Buchanan Street. It was always. I think the thing is as well, and why I'm probably more. Um, Protective about it as well as Scotland. We are friendlier. We are, and I know that might upset a few Southerners, but we are as people. We are. When you walk through Glasgow, people will talk to you. If I always look at it this way, I think in London, I feel like if I was being attacked and I was lying on the ground, most people would probably just step over me and walk on. In Glasgow, they'd already be over helping you. In Scotland, we are like that, and it's becoming so sad for me that when I walk through Glasgow now, it's not like that anymore. And that's what's going to happen across Scotland. But we're losing that because the people that we are importing don't share our values. They don't have British and Scottish values like we do, which is, and I think that's almost used as a stick to beat us with by the SNP as well. They say, yeah, we are friendly, we're welcoming in Scotland. Well, yeah, we are, but not to everyone and anyone. We're friendly and we look after each other, but we don't want to look after the whole world.
Yeah.
But
And it's just not possible, right? I mean, I think it's very weak for a country to publicly state that their only value is being tolerant of
yeah,
others and diversity. Like there's no pride at all in your own. And I mean, I totally agree. I spent a lot of time in Glasgow actually the past couple of years with some work stuff. And honestly, I mean, I suppose this happens when I go to other parts of the UK as well, because I am in London and it is its kind of own thing.
mm,
But even the even for me, there was a slight culture shock with going into a Starbucks and being served by a Glaswegian like teenager. And I was
yeah,
thinking, whoa, this is normally I'm used to, how do I say this? Like going into establishments here. I mean, for example, my corner shop just round the road,
yeah,
which is like, it's not far out in London. It's like fairly close to central, whatever.
mm,
Um, it's run by a family. They're all really nice, but they've been here for years, and most of them can't hold a conversation. So I think,
yeah,
okay, you've moved here from Sri Lanka, I think, um, you've settled down, you've made a business, but then it's just completely feasible for you to just operate in your own monoculture, and
yeah,
there's just no like the you know you I think a lot of anger is misdirected at immigrants, and then the left like to paint any argument about this as targeting immigrants themselves. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, they're following incentives. So even if you're kind of an extreme Islamist and you want to move to a country for the economic benefits, and actually it suits you better not to integrate. You want to go to your kids to go to a Muslim school. You don't really care about your wife learning English. I mean, if the country's not urging you to do otherwise,
mm.
and there's no responsibility on you, then how can you blame them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that's the thing for me, that integration, that's one of the key factors that they don't understand. And in fact, I did a post about it today because someone said to me, and I can't remember the guy's name, the guy from the train in Huntingdon, who
Mm,
helped out and was a hero basically. And it turns out that this guy, I think, is from Algerian descent. He's a second generation immigrant. And a few people commented today in some of my posts and said, I see you haven't done a post praising this guy. I assume it's because he's an immigrant. And I did a post about it because it frustrates the life out of me, that. And that's exactly it. They think people like me don't like immigrants. We just don't like them. We just want every single one of them to go back to where they came from. And I'm quoting it. And that's not the case. It's people who come here who live by British values, live by British rules, integrate and become part of the culture that we uphold in this country. Absolutely no problem. It's the people who don't do that. That's where the issue is, and who people who are coming here illegally, for example, as well. If someone comes here legally, contributes to the economy, works hard, integrates, and flourishes here, brilliant. That is exactly
mm,
what we should be promoting, obviously in controlled small numbers, though, like not in the ridiculous millions that we're getting every year now. Of course, like that only works when, I think, like in 1997, net migration was 40,000. It's now, who knows, in the millions. It's ridiculous.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you said. I think I find the conversations about integration tricky because, it's kind of become the new thing to say, but it seems to me like there's some areas in particular. I mean, you told me you spent some time in Leicester recently, so this is just me making my own assumptions, but it seems to me there are some cases in which we're beyond integration. I mean,
Yeah,
it's fair enough to say integrate, but that only applies to cultures of which integration appeals to. So if
yeah,
you
that's
come to
true.
a country and your deal was no need to integrate, actually it's better if you just spread your own culture. We love that. It's not like we can now change our minds. So it seems to me like we're heading towards this kind of balkanization, and I worry that some of these arguments are coming too late, especially when we're not even slowing down the pace of this. It's just still trundling along until
Yeah.
this Labour government potentially can be evicted, and who knows if it will even stop then.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is becoming, um, an increasing argument for remigration. I think I'm definitely I've been it's building a bit of momentum on that front. I'm seeing it a lot, and I think it's fair because we can't go on like this. You're right. And can we afford as a country to go on like this till 2029? I'm not sure we can, and in lots of different ways. And you've got Rachel Reeves going to put our taxes up at the end of the month. I think the thing, people don't mind paying taxes when they know that it's going to help their own people and actually benefit. But I don't want to pay any more tax. Where's it going to go? And we know what's happening with it at the moment. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And on the areas as well, I think specifically for me, I don't really know London that well. I spent some time in London. I'm down and back up. But there was an area, Whitechapel.
Tower Hamlets, you should check out. Yeah, Whitechapel is in Tower Hamlets.
Right. I didn't know that area at all, and I ended up going through it, and I wasn't comfortable. I didn't feel like that was Britain. I didn't feel like
Yeah.
that there was no that's zero integration to the British way of life. But even I think there was outside the tube station. It was in Arabic, I think. We're in the centre. We're in the capital of the United Kingdom. We're in the capital of England.
Bengali, it's in.
Is it Bengal? There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
So Tower Hamlet, East London has a huge Bangladeshi community,
Right.
and this goes back decades. But obviously, it's ramped up as the decades have gone on, and then these groups have more children.
Mm-hmm.
I posted recently to X, which kind of went viral. BBC did a documentary back in 2016. I highly recommend watching it. I'll put a link in the description for anyone who wants to. But it's called The Last Whites of the East End. So people talk about having compassion for these Bangladeshi migrants and like how we have all these mosques and entire areas have become Islamified, basically, like Muslim schools, women in niqabs, burqas, no English people left. But you have to think back to pre-1970s. This was just all Cockney England. It was all white Cockney English people, and that whole community of people have basically just been decimated. They're just gone. And how can you argue diversity is our strength if you ramp up the diversity, but then a whole group of people decide to just up and leave? I mean, one of the huge things was the change to the social housing policy, and a lot of foreign-born people were now being prioritized for that. So it seems to me like they just keep saying multiculturalism is our strength, diversity is our strength, but then at the same time, they're saying the far right is everywhere. So surely it's not a success, because then why would you have this big far right movement pushing back against it, right?
Exactly. That's the thing, and it's become this thing of it shouldn't be controversial to say, and I'm very much in the camp of that Islam is not compatible with the West, and we are actively this unholy alliance between the Greens and the left-leaning parties in Islam will only end one way, and that is that they will be out on I don't know if I can swear on here, but it's not really out on their arse. They will be. And I think that's the thing. We should be questioning Islam. We should be questioning the impact that it is having on our country, and whether it be the makeup of our country or, as you said, people walking around in niqabs or burqas. It's mind-boggling, really.
Mm. Let's see what happens. We're going to come back to some topics around Islam pretty soon, but let's move on. All right, everyone. So there has been some more controversy around the trans debate, this time coming from Los Angeles. And the thing that never happens has happened again, right? People say that a man would never go into a women's locker room unless he was genuinely trans and genuinely had gender dysphoria, and it's such a tiny amount. There's no such thing as a sexual predator. It's actually just cis men doing it. Well, how do you know the difference, especially when all you have to do is say, I'm trans, and then you get to walk in, no matter how much medical procedures or anything you've got. So before I continue, make sure you like the video, and let's look at this story. So I just want to check, can you still hear me, Nathan, when I'm on this screen?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, okay. All right. So singer Tish Hyman, who I was not actually familiar with prior to this, but claims Gold's Gym revoked her membership after confronting man in the women's locker room. So she tweeted about this. So today he saw me walk into the women's room, followed me in, and called me a bitch. I ran out into the locker room crying and screaming, "This is why we can't be quiet, because people need to know what's happening. Thank you to the man who helped me today." And then she followed on saying that Gold's Gym terminated my membership after the man was escorted out by police. They had me escorted out by officers afterwards. It was embarrassing. I left, but not before making sure everyone knew that they were allowing men into the locker room. So good on her, especially because, she is a singer. And here are some of the clips from the gym. And everyone, I am joined today by Nathan King, ex Big Brother contestant and self-confessed conservative. So let's have a look at some of these clips.
Like
I'm the guy asking you a fucking question.
Exactly. Get out of the way now. No. Now he knows how to be a man, right? Now he knows how to be a man. Stay out of the women's locker room. We don't want it. He needs to have his gym membership revoked for that shit. And the woman told you. He assaulted me. The girl told already. We already filed reports. No.
That's fine. I want the video.
You can't get rid of me for this. I'm a woman and I have every right to not want a man in the restroom when I'm naked. There are girls naked in there. Look at them walking in there like it's okay. It's not okay. I understand. I'm not calling.
I mean, you laugh, right? Okay, there's the next one coming in. So, doesn't really look like much of a woman to me, right?
No, exactly. It's laughable, but it's not, because it's such as, if I had a, that's how I look at it. If I had a daughter and a big burly bloke's going into the bathroom with her or whatever, the changing room, it's unbelievable. And I don't know how I've got to this point where it's controversial to say it. It's good on her. Was it Tish, her name? Good on her.
Yeah.
For standing up for herself, because it's unbelievable. And I think we're talking about Scotland, interestingly. Sandy Peggy was up in Scotland as well, that happened to in the NHS. It's just, it is a mental illness. And the thing is as well about it, I don't know your thoughts, but if they just wanted to do what they say, which is live their lives, they just want to live their lives as them true selves, well, just do that then. Don't try and make everyone else buy into it. Don't try and infringe on other people's how comfortable they might feel getting changed in a changing room or whatever. Just go and live your life in peace then. But that's not what they want. They want compliance. They want obedience. And that's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know about you, but I never want to be anywhere that I'm clearly not wanted, right? Yeah. So if I went to a gym in London and the atmosphere, I know that this is totally not the same thing because I am a man, even though I'm gay. But if I happen to join a real bro gym where, I don't know, men complained, I mean, this wouldn't even happen in today, but I felt really uncomfortable. I would probably self-exclude from that rather than, I mean, if it was an issue in all gyms, then it would be kind of more of a, let's protest about it. But it goes to show that it takes a special kind of man to force his way in, despite the fact and in spite of the fact that these women are objecting to it, saying they don't feel comfortable. So it seems to me like, there's a thrill out of that for these type of people.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's, they just, I cannot, I find it so, I have so many conversations on it, and I find it such an interesting thing that it is an element of narcissism. And I'm not a psychologist, so I can't diagnose, but it is a narcissistic tendency to just have no care for anyone else and just be so self-important that you will just march in there, make a whole bunch of women, a whole bunch of young girls feel uncomfortable and just couldn't care less. A normal person doesn't do that. A normal person would go, and especially I think a woman who stereotypically would be more emotional, have more feelings. If you were identifying as a woman, well, try acting like one then. Actually have a bit of awareness for the people around you and say, do you know what? That's making them feel really uncomfortable. Me and my big bulliness, I'll go elsewhere actually and just not make them feel uncomfortable. I think sounds simple.
100%. So this is quite a funny clip of her popping off in the gym. So let's look.
Men, grown men with big dicks in the women's locker room. And that's why I'm getting kicked out. And I want to make sure the girls know. The fuck? Everybody saw that man in the fucking locker room. No one's saying shit. And I'm fucking done with it. It's fucking stupid. It's dangerous. Me naked in front of a man without my permission. But I ain't the one who gets kicked out the gym, y'all. I'm terminated for not wanting men in the locker room.
I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I'll say is I feel like she, as a black woman, she kind of gets away with that, like going absolutely popping off about it and screaming.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd almost, if you didn't know the story, you'd think that she was kind of some crazy person, but actually she's completely right.
Yeah, she is. She is. I think she's just. I think I would describe that as a very American way of handling a situation. I think us Brits would be a bit more. We'd cause a bit of a fuss, but we'd do it quietly. I don't actually mind that way of doing it because she's absolutely right. She's been booted out of a gym because she refused to share it with a man. She's right with what she's saying, but she is just saying it in a different way to maybe I would, you would. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's good, right? Because so far people try the kind of moderate approach and say, oh, but I have compassion. But then you learn that for these people, there is no moderate ground. So you might as well just actually say what you think, right? And we've seen that that's the route J.K. Rowling has taken, you know, very compassionate, very moderate at the start. And now she's just like, I don't give a fuck. Like she's saying very, very ballsy stuff on X, and, you know, I'm here for it. So let's see. She actually had some interesting things to say about this TikTok from the car. So let's go.
I just had the worst experience ever at the gym, at Gold's Gym, and I think this is probably happening at gyms across America. Trans women are going into the women's locker room and not really caring about how women feel about it. And it's really hurtful, yo. Like, how you gonna say you wanna be a woman or that you are a woman, but you don't give a fuck how women feel? Today I was naked in the locker room. I turn around and there's a man there in boy clothes, lip gloss, standing there looking at me. I'm butt naked. So the first thing I think is maybe there's a worker in here. Maybe I missed the sign. I say the word sir to say, sir, what are you doing in here? He goes, don't fucking talk to me. I'm a woman. I have a right to be in here. Immediately, I'm fucking pissed because I'm butt naked. I feel violated. I feel like weird. Like, I don't want to deal with this, right? So the girls are walking in and they're seeing the commotion and they actually chime in and say, yo, I don't know why he's in here. He's not supposed to be in here. And then I talk to the people that work at Gold's Gym and they don't really have anything to do. They just like, oh, we can file a report about it, incident report. What the fuck is going on? Like, listen, how can you say you're a woman or you want to be a woman and you don't care how women feel? Nothing more manly than not giving a fuck about how women feel, I'd like to think. I don't want to say that I know everything about gay rights or trans rights. I'm a lesbian. I've been a lesbian my whole life. I treat people how I want to be treated regardless of whatever their sexual orientation is or whatever they decide. So I'm not transphobic and I'm not homophobic. I'm not straightphobic. I'm not racist. None of these things. I just believe in treating people how I want to be treated. Why do you guys think it's okay for men to be in the women's restroom? And like, when is the cutoff point? Is it like, oh, you cut off your penis, you can come in here? Why aren't women making the laws? And if you really want to fucking be safe and feel good, why don't we just make trans restrooms? Because it ain't right. The way I feel right now, and don't come into my comments about he gay, he ain't looking at you. I don't give a fuck, bro. It's about a feeling, yo. Like, if you never been a little girl who been touched or been through some shit, you won't understand that feeling. And you've never been a little girl.
Perfectly said. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, she kind of said it all, right? But I just find that when you see this man, so, I mean, Andy, my good friend, and credit to him here for doing this background work, but he identified this person. So born 1993, Grant Kyle Freeman. And you can see here that there's some images of him going through his kind of mild transition. So here he is, you know, they always seem to be quite masculine men, some of these kind of fetishistic kinds, and then, oh, look, the hair is getting a bit longer, the facial hair is gone. I mean, it shows the level of cult mentality for me for, you know, his version, which is on the far right. You know, they will still defend this, even though if you use your plain eyes, anyone would know that this just isn't right.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's why it just clearly, it couldn't be clearer. These people are mentally ill. And I think the thing is that really frustrates me about the conversation is the advocates for them will say, ah, yes, we've got to treat them really kindly and really nice because suicide rates are higher amongst the trans community and whatever else. And they look at it and they say that the reason that they come to for it being higher is because of people like me, or people like you, or people like whoever else, who are openly against this gender ideology. And instead of looking inwards and saying, well, no, actually, the reason for this is because they are mentally ill, and they clearly are anyway. And that is a consequence of that. And I think if they openly look to themselves, but that would require less narcissism is the issue that they'll have there, to look inward and say, well, actually, maybe it's us that's the problem, not the people that are oppressing us.
Mm. Yeah, and I think even I agree about the mental illness fact, but then there's so many different types within that, and
Yeah.
don't have time today. I mean, my viewership will be familiar with all the different motivations people have to be trans, but it's a very different than kind of a distressed they them girl, right?
Yeah.
Who's talking about it. So, right, we're going to move on to the next topic. So, everyone, something worrying is going on in our mosques in the UK. You know, it's not something that many of us are tuned up to, would consider researching, because if you're not a Muslim, why would you, right? You don't go to mosque, you don't know what they say in there, you don't even really know what Islam is or the kind of things they preach. And I'm covering this today because as an active user of X, I notice on a weekly basis these clips popping up of very extreme things being said in mosques around the UK. And this is not to say that this is every mosque, of course, but what's worrying is that none of these mosques are getting investigated by police. There are no imams being fired. There are no mosques being closed down. And when you look at some of the stuff being said, they are pretty extreme. So we're going to have a look at some of those. And just to let you know, I mean, I have clipped the important bits out of these. I made sure to do it in a way that was not out of context, even though that wasn't very hard, to be perfectly honest with you. And the majority of these clips surfaced either this year or last year. So they all are in recent history, but I was not able to find out exactly what locations all of them were in. So just bear that in mind. But this is some of the kind of extreme stuff that we are seeing in the UK being said today.
Allah is not shy of the truth. We don't say that Islam is here to live, to coexist with lots of different religions and all of us can just hold hands and be friends. This religion was sent to dominate the world. It was sent to be superior, to extinguish the light of every other religion and to be superior to it. But we're not shy to say it, and we don't find that to be something that we should be shy to say. That this religion has been sent to dominate, to wipe out, to take out every other religion, to eclipse it, to be superior to it, to have the people leave every religion and to accept Islam. And if that requires fighting to achieve it, then it requires fighting to achieve it. Because the greatest purpose for which jihad was legislated is to make the word of Allah the highest and the word of those who disbelieve the lowest.
Equate the Muslim with the criminals. And here Allah is talking about, when they're talking about the criminals, talking about who? The kuffar, the disbelievers. As we mentioned last week, the criminals. Disbelieving Allah is a crime. Committing shirk with Allah is a crime. That's why I said every single kafir is a criminal.
All right, well, everyone, joining me to discuss is ex-Big Brother contestant and self-confessed Tory Nathan King. So we have a few clips here, Nathan, but I'm just going to show a couple of them at a time.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary, right?
It is. It's scary, but it's not surprising. I'm not surprised at all because they're very open. They're very open about what they want to achieve, and I think we need to start being equally open and equally boisterous in pushing back against it, because I think that recently, and I wish I could remember who said it, and it was a brilliant little piece they'd done on it in terms of the Jewish community in this country, and how that the Jewish community notoriously just accept things, just let's not cause a fuss, let's just kind of try and move on and almost just brush it under the carpet, and that happen, we'll be fine. That's not what needs to happen anymore. We need to be loud, and we need to push back very loudly and very strongly. I think being polite, which I suppose would have been the best word to summarise what was said about the Jewish community, they are polite, isn't going to cut it anymore, I don't think. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. And in certain areas in this country, already is too late, potentially. And I don't know what would need to happen to push back against that. But someone very strong in charge.
Yeah.
I think Trump-esque, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can almost kind of see how this has got out of hand, right? Because when I think about the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community who don't integrate, who speak their own language, who have their own strange way of dressing, we can ignore those people because they're so small in number.
Yeah.
And, you know, their kids go to a Jewish school. Now, if entire towns started being dominated by ultra-Orthodox Jews, I argue that actually people would be more emboldened to speak out against it because of anti-Semitism is pretty rife. But even if that happened, it wouldn't be okay because it's not British culture, right? But then their religion doesn't have this kind of dominant aspects of trying to convert people and trying to recruit, influence policy, spread. So it's even more and it doesn't have that violent aspect. So it's even more dangerous in this fact. And I totally agree with clamping down on this stuff. I mean, it's through years of appeasement and, you know, oh, it's just this tiny community and they may say some crazy stuff, but like they're their own thing, you know, leave them be. And this appeasement is just growing an issue more and more. I just can't believe that they've not been investigated. But I do worry that if we decide, okay, let's change this, let's investigate these mosques, let's shut some of them down, let's ban certain things. I mean, we'll see what happens when we stop appeasing, right? Because some people say it's surprising we've not had more terrorist attacks and more violence. So I worry that even a tough approach is then going to be met with real hostility.
It'd be met with Islamophobia. You're Islamophobic. That's what it'd be met with. That's what they're I was going to say covertly doing, but it's not even covert. They're just openly pushing this Islamophobia definition, and it's just going to get wider and wider, and to the point where we're just not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to criticize Islam, and I don't think I'm not much of a. I don't really do much hyperbole. But on this one, I do genuinely believe we are in trouble, and I do think we need to act, or we will regret it. And I think that we need to hell with what they call us, to hell with what they say we are, whether it be racist or Islamophobic. We need to really clamp down, put our foot down, and not give up on our country, not give up on our values, not give up on what we stand for in this country. And I think your point was interesting about the ultra-Orthodox Jews, but I think that is the important point. They don't try to recruit. They're quite in fact, the interesting thing with Judaism is they actually actively try to put people off because of the years of oppression Jews have suffered, and the years of, you may or may not know the history. And that's the thing. So I think, but people would probably have a problem with it. You're right, due to anti-Semitism. It's curious. I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not ideal to have, even though their community is so small. I mean, normal, average Jewish people, I meet them, and they seem every bit as British as you, for example, and in every sense of the word. Like their faith doesn't really seem to come into their entire worldview and how they interact with the world and who they date and all of that kind of stuff. And it will for some, but I think, you know, it's not ideal to have any community just completely segregated off, right?
That's fair.
So let's look at another one of these clips. So I do want to caveat, this is from an ITV documentary in 2013, which I think we can agree that they would never do now, but this is pretty crazy.
A reporter goes to meet a senior Muslim cleric in West Yorkshire. Mufti Shamsul Huda Khan Misbahi works with West Yorkshire Police, has spoken out against forced marriages, but agrees to a marriage ceremony, a nikah, involving a 14-year-old girl.
14 साल की है, लड़का 20 साल का है और वो रहता है लंदन में। हाँ जी, आगे। तो उसमें बेटा ऐसा है कि आप चाहते हो निकाह करना ना? हाँ जी। तो शरई तौर पर जो निकाह का मामला है वो तो हो जाएगा।
The Mufti from the Jamia Masjid Kanzul Iman in Heckmondwike goes on to confirm the 14-year-old, who he's told has only met the man once, can leave home to live with him.
से बाद वो लंदन चलेगा चाहिए था ये ठीक है ना? Yes. सब फिर जायज़ है। बिल्कुल सब everything सब कुछ जायज़।
All right.
I think when we talk about the grooming gangs, I think the interesting thing about Islam as well that I've noticed, when the Catholic Church had their controversy, of which they have had controversy in the past, there's no doubt, universally, Catholics across the world condemned it. They condemned the actions of the few within the Catholic Church who were exploiting young boys and whatever. It's well documented. Within Islam, they don't do that. They don't seem to. They don't seem to condemn people within their own community and within their own faith. That's a really interesting phenomenon, really, because, well, I suppose what it shows is that above all else, they will uphold and protect their own, which is fine, because I'm advocating that we should do the same here. But I think the thing is that if, no matter protecting your own, you should have morals, and you should, and as I say, I think the Catholic Church is a great example, a great comparison, that everyone universally condemned, and within Islam they don't.
I mean, I can attest to that completely, because I was raised Catholic, but not strictly, mainly just doing it in school and all this kind of stuff. Everyone was really. But I mean, my mother's family, for example, comes from, religion was a big part of their lives growing up, her and her siblings, doing the rosary beads at home, praying all the time. And I've seen many of my mother's generation just walk away from the Catholic Church because they were so disgusted. And it's totally, it obviously was taboo to speak about within the clergy and then within certain communities. But I do feel there are a lot of people who never knew about it. And once they did, like you said, they were outspoken. Whereas I don't necessarily think, oh, well, it's the Pakistanis community, it's their responsibility to solve this, because the real failure has been the British establishment and the British police and the British, because we've allowed this in, and then we've allowed it to keep going on. So it's like the establishment kind of, it's all, I don't want to say you get what you deserve. I don't mean it in that sense, but if you have no pride in your own values, and you just let all this stuff slide by, what can you expect? And it's what you said about us sleepwalking into this. I mean, I feel like there's this apathy over this. So some people say, well, yeah, this is a big issue, but like what's done is done now. We can't really change it. And it is worrying. And it's hard to know, we have these clips, and I have more of them. And we see things being said. We don't see many Muslims speaking out against this stuff. No. But there's still a lot of unknown, isn't there? There's a lot of demonization, there's a lot of polarization. Some people are like, oh, well, they're all peaceful. Some people say, like, Islam, there's no difference between extreme Islam, there's just Islam. And actually most are extreme, and the peaceful ones are kind of happy to stand by and not say anything. But the truth is, I feel like we just don't know the scale of this, because we don't have access to these communities. We don't have access to what they're saying, and no one is doing the work to find out.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that another point as well I would make is that it's difficult where to draw the line. But in terms of, there's a few examples that spring to my mind in Scotland, politicians who have very strong links to Islam and very strong roots to other countries. And I worry with the large scale of people who have very strong links to other countries, who are representing, who are an MP, whether it be an MP or an MSP up in Scotland, and their priority it looks at the time is not Scotland or not Britain, and that worries me as well. And I think it links with Islam in most cases that I'm seeing. And I think Hamza Yusuf is an example in Scotland. I don't know if you've heard of Hamza. If you haven't, that's good for you, because he's a troublemaking man that has caused so many issues for Scotland. But then his wife's family, I think, in Gaza. So then again, he was pushing a certain agenda that suits himself, and it worries me. It really does. It concerns me a lot. But where do you draw the line? Like, how much British do you need to be? I get it's difficult. I understand that as well. There's nuance there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is interesting, that debate on, what qualifies for you as to be a politician. I mean, I've lived here 13 years. I'm very much westernized and, embedded in this British culture, and Irish culture isn't too different. But if someone asked me, like, would you run for anything? Even if I wanted to, I think now, being so politically active, I'm happy to advocate for what I think is right. But I'm not sure, given I wasn't born here, if it would feel right for me. And there's that MP, Ayub Khan, who is very involved in banning the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. That's going ahead. They're not allowed go. He was born in Pakistan, and now he's an MP for Parliament, and most of the issues he talks about are Muslim issues and Gaza. So to me, I think I take a step back and try and get rid of all the woke arguments. I think, actually, this is really, can you imagine one of us moving to China and then representing the Chinese? Like, it's just very strange.
They wouldn't have it. They'd say, no, you'd be laughed out of the country. They say, no, of course not, because you're going to represent your own interests first and the interests of your own country. If you say that here in Britain, oh, it's racist. Oh, no, you can't say that. No, they lived in Britain for, I don't know, 2.5 years or something. They're British. So it's ridiculous. Yeah.
All right, so let's look at a few more of these. You'll be glad to know.
You'll be sitting next to a guy who's going to go and penetrate and sodomize another guy tonight. And you're going to expect Allah to give you victory, because you're standing next to a guy who's going to literally insert his genitals into another man's back passage.
Very simple. No integration, no multiculturalism, no diversity, no tolerance. I've got my own deen, you got your own deen. You got your democracy, we got our own sharia. You got your own free mixing, we got our own nikah. Own cheating within the marketplace, your own credit cards. We got our own economic system. We got our own foreign policy. We got our own deen.
Let's just play the next couple as well.
Her that she is punished and she is stoned to death. And according to the Sharia again, when it comes to women, there must be a hole dug in the earth, in the ground, and she must be covered up to the half of the body, so that her satar does not.
Those who have been captured in war, if a disbelieving woman who's married is captured in war, she becomes permissible for the Muslims after one menstrual cycle has passed, which serves to establish that she is not pregnant.
Religion of peace.
So again,
exactly, religion of peace indeed. And yeah, I think what I find the most troubling is, it's not so much, we'll say, about sleepwalking into it, it's the left. It's this argument. If anyone on the right said anything close to that, if anyone who looked like me said anything like that, I'd be shunned. I'd be shunned and I'd be hounded by the left. But they actually are jumping into bed with these people. And it blows my mind, really. And I think the other thing is as well, in terms of remigration, in terms of how do we sort this problem, we don't have enough children in this country. We don't have enough country in the West, as well, actually. Just for some reason, we have small families, 1 or 2 children, and Islamists overall have large families. So we are being outbuffed as well. So it really is a lose-lose. And I know I've sounded awfully pessimistic, and I apologise for that, but it is the reality, I'm afraid.
No, that is, it's okay. Like, because that's definitely the tone recently. Is it does seem really pessimistic, because the birth rate is a phenomenon which people have many theories about. They talk about abortion, birth control, they talk about feminism, they talk about how both of us, but men and women who have kids now, pretty much both of them have to have a job to be able to actually do that.
Yeah.
They talk about technology, social media. So, I mean, no one really has the answer,
Yeah.
but obviously encouraging, I think remigration sounds like a scary thing, right? But the way I've heard it put, which I can kind of have sympathy for, is obviously forcibly deport illegal people and people who are foreign nationals, who or have dual citizenship, who've committed violence crimes. And then for people who hate our country and want to change it, then have measures that encourage them to go, whether that's us banning certain things and actually saying, if you want to do that, it's not here. Or some other countries are taking measures like paying people to leave. So who knows where we're going to go with all of this. But I do think that, I just wonder if there's going to be a kind of pro-natal movement in the next decade where, people are scared of it, because we start thinking of The Handmaid's Tale and like women being forced to have kids, which obviously should never, ever happen.
No.
But I just wonder if there's going to be a movement of, so-called indigenous Westerners saying, well, like, let's have more children. Like, this is something, because otherwise, I think in history, there's not been any empire society who've had a declining birth rate who've recovered from that.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right, and I think it's so multifaceted. And Boris Johnson did a very interesting piece on it, and he said that in this generation we are boring. You don't drink enough. We don't have enough sex, and I think he's right. I think we have become. There's so many arguments on. I scroll through social media sometimes. There's this big push on man hating at the moment. I don't know where that comes from. Right throughout music, whether it's Sabrina Carpenter or Taylor Swift, or and just I scroll through TikTok, and there's so much of this women hating on men and making men out to be this thing that they are not, and that all contributes to it as well, because people have got this unrealistic, ridiculous expectation on men, and it's just madness. So yeah, I think we could argue about that one till the cows came home, but it's worrying also. Yeah,
it's so hard to reach a balance, because obviously there were many positives with feminism on, women being liberated from being able to join the workforce and be able to have a mortgage and bank accounts and all of this stuff, which goes without saying. But then you can also see why certain things, and also the cost of living, has led to less. It's not something I talk about much because I've not researched it too much, but it's definitely interesting. And just one part I forgot to add was this guy. He was specifically talking about the Queers for Palestine movement, and he was saying Hamas have failed because people in Western countries have bandied together with gays who sodomize each other. So, we will see that coalition break down, and you've seen it already with your party, Zara Sultana, and the Islamist MPs. I mean, they're already arguing over trans issues. So I really don't see. I can see that thing falling apart fairly quickly. I mean, it happened with the Pride movement. Like a lot of the gays are breaking off from it now. It's bound to happen.
Absolutely, I got that when I made some comments that went on Pick News and whatever about the trans issue. I got that labelled against me quite a lot, that I was anti-LGBTQ plus whatever, and I said no. Like there's a clear distinction there, and you're right. I've noticed that myself, that LGB is parting from the gender ideology nonsense, which good. So as they should, really, they've hijacked it.
100%. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's live stream and discussing Big Brother, discussing the crazy trans issue in the locker room in LA. I hope she gets her membership back, and also looking at some of the crazy stuff being said in our mosques. For Substack members, my paid members, we're going to continue for another 15 minutes, reacting to some pretty funny clips from Labour MP Dawn Butler, who is a classic race baiter, but also just comes across pretty dumb. So it's very funny. Please join the Substack if you like. You can check the link out in the description. And for those departing my stream now, thanks so much to Nathan and for being on the channel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.